Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one, Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Sadanto Suchedoye Pulahudi Samyao Sanputoshe. Blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one, Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Wu Shang Shen Shen Wei Miao Ai Chen Lahudi Samyao Sanputoshe. Blessed Jin Yen Wan Shou Yuan. Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered, even how and accepted may we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. Venerable Master and Dharma friends, welcome to our Sutra lecture tonight. My goodness, this is Sunday, December 1st here in Queensland. It's a day earlier in California. It's now 1:37 p.m. here in the Gold Coast of Queensland. That means it's 7:37 there in Berkeley, California. And other times, wherever you might be listening around the planet. So welcome. Glad that you could spend some time with the Avatamsaka Sutra and with this fine assembly of folks. And we're going to start our lecture tonight, as we do, by invoking spiritual presence. And if you will, you can see the screen. Let's see, page 6. You can see the screen. You'll see homage to the Buddha's Flower Garland Sutra, Great Expanded Teachings in the Ocean-Wide Flower Garland Assembly of Thunderstorms. What you're hearing in the background here, I don't know if the microphone picked that up, but we have blue sky on one part of our sky, and we have thunderclouds and lightning on the other side. We're in the middle of a massive, serious, major drought, and a line of thunderstorms has rolled through. Last night it rained. Today it's going to rain, and after that we're back to dry weather. But we'll take what we can get, and we'll take that as an auspicious sign, a thunderclap, just as we invoke the Buddha's presence. All right? So join me if you will. I'm going to put my... No, I won't. I'm going to play my banjo. You put your palms together. That's our melody. Like that. Namo Dafang Guangfo, Huayan Jing, Huayan Hai Wei Fo. Here we go. Namo Dafang Guangfo, Huayan Jing, Huayan Hai Wei Fo. No thunderclap that time. But now let's mention what's going on here. Let's get ourselves oriented. I'm sitting in the Dharma Hall in the Dharma House here in Gold Coast Dharma Realm. And the reason why the backdrop looks unfamiliar, if you've been following our series, is because in the Buddha Hall, where I would ordinarily be, we have a major Amitabha recitation session taking place, and this is the last day. So there's many folks reciting the Buddha's name. So we're down here where we began our first sutra lectures, the Transoceanic Sutra lecture from Australia to California and around the world. So at the same time, we have Sam here with his computer sending the materials and the message out to Chinese speakers, and Cliff is at another broadband system translating my English into Chinese so that people in China can hear. And this is truly a miracle of technology. It's not. It's ones and zeros. It's code is powering this lecture, but the effect of it seems miraculous that I could be speaking and watching all of you. I notice in the balcony there's quite a few faithful Vietnamese disciples listening to a Vietnamese translation, and we've got men on the men's side, women on the women's side, and tech volunteers putting it all together. So that's quite marvelous, and I think Master Shrenoir would approve. I think he would say, use those tools well to spread the Dharma. Also in Berkeley, we have 3 bhikshus listening in. We've got Jinwei, Jinchuan, Jinpo, all there to support the Dharma, and Jinhe is the Dharma host here in the Gold Coast. So we've got a full complement of Berkeley Monastery monastics making this lecture auspicious. So, okay, that's a little bit about the physical details of this lecture. The actual hands and hearts that have to be on the controls before the message gets out. Now, where we are in the sutra is also a matter that needs some explanation. And this is for those of you who know, who've been following, this is the Flower Garden Sutra, Huayan Jing, and it's known as the Buddha Avatamsaka Sutra. And we're in a chapter called the 10 Stages chapter, Shabumi, formerly known as the 10 Grounds chapter, but we've updated our translation. So the 10 Stages chapter is about the Bodhisattva path, and how you do that, how one thinks, talks, walks, behaves, reacts, and cultivates like a bodhisattva, according to the Flower Garland Sutra. And of the 10 stages, we're on the very last one. We've got all the way to the end, and of all the various stages, and they're like smaller sub-chapters within the big chapter. Each one of them has a beginning, middle, and end, and a new set of instructions for the Bodhisattva. So this one, among the 10, is the most sublime. That's the word that works. It's the most remarkable, probably the most subtle, and I would say even the most esoteric, because the things that happen to the Bodhisattva are science can't track them. This Bodhisattva in training is one step from Buddhahood. So in other words, his or her mind is already tuned to pitch and is able to play symphonies of music, if we can use that metaphor. There's not much covering this Bodhisattva's mind, and the nature that has been revealed has now been cultivated to remarkable ability, right? So that's where we are. We've just begun that 10th stage, and what we've been discovering is really quite amazing, quite remarkable. You should have somebody check this. No, I'm sorry. Let's see. The 10 stages. Where's the 10 stages lecture? I should check that before I make a random claim. But here in the heavens, the chapter opens with devas, gods, particularly females, praising the Buddha. And the sutra gives us the song they sing. Stages lecture. I should check that. Astonishing. Make a random claim. But here in the heavens, in our meditation class, that one of the chapter opens most popular devas, gods of American females these days is known as CCM, Contemporary Christian Music. I should check. Which is radio station after radio station from coast to coast. But here in the heavens, in our meditation class, and one of that music is known as praised with popular devas, gods, many generations of praise of Jesus of Nazareth and God behind him. And music. I should just radio station after radio station who love CCM but music. Here in the heavens, meditation genre, and one of that music is known as praise stars and devas, gods, many generations. People who follow it intensely. So, if we took the text of the radio station and added drums and electric guitars, we could have our own Buddhist praise, CBS, contemporary Buddhist. Because why? Many generations, they're praising the Buddha in so many words. So we're halfway through, and one of the fun parts of the unique integrated parts about our own iteration of the David's praising God. We sing it along with it. Today I brought my Ashoka banjo to see if we can't do some of the singing in praise. One of the fun parts of the integrated parts of our iteration of the David's praising God. We sing it along with it. We are going to start with this verse right here, just as a magician. We are on page 6, some of the stanzas. One of the famous parts get us there. And I think we actually read it last week. And illustrate it. Okay, here we go. I'll give you all a line, and if you want to, wherever you are around the planet, give me the line back. Here we go. 譬如幻师之幻术. We actually read it last week. Good. 在欲大众多所作. Your turn. And if you want to, wherever you are around the planet, give me the line back. 如来智慧亦复然，幻师之幻术. Lost the mic. Too bad. 于世间中普现身. Your turn. The mic went burst of static and then went silent. So I'm assuming you all read that very well. All right. Maybe somebody can track down what mic. Too bad. Okay, here's the English, and let's try to read it in unison. If you'd like to join me, here we go. Just as a magician who is skilled in illusions can make things appear before your eyes, the Tathagata, with his wisdom, in a similar way, can reduplicate his bodies everywhere throughout the world. Okay, we actually sang this last time, and that says, can make things that are troubleshooting centers. Okay. Good. Now, what's being talked about? One of the qualities of the Buddha. The Devis are going, yay, yay, Buddha. You're like a magician who can make things appear, and the Buddha, likewise, can make his bodies appear. And, what's being talked about? You just shake your head. One of the qualities of the Buddha. The Devis, it's an aspect of the Buddha's wisdom. It says so right here. What does it say? It says, Wu Lai Zhi Hui. And the Buddha, like the wisdom of the Buddha. Now, when it says the wisdom of the Buddha, it means his new mirror-like qualities of mind. It's an aspect, right? Something like that. Wisdom is described in a variety of ways, and one of the ways they say that a bodhisattva on the path towards Buddhahood turns 8 consciousnesses into 4 qualities of wisdom. And I went like that because the sutra describes it as a flipping over. It's the same substance, different functions. The Buddha doesn't get anything, he turns it around so that it works in a whole new way. Consciousness, if you think about it, let's name one. Your ear consciousness is now hearing me speak in my flat Midwestern accent, Great Lakes accent, and some of you are translating it into meaningful syntax in your ears. Okay, ear consciousness, it works. To test it out, 如果我现在就改变了，就改过来了，就现在讲中国话呢，就不是很多人都会听得懂。So I said if I suddenly switched into Chinese, not everybody's going to follow. And what did I do? Same voice, but different function. Ear consciousness went. That's the ear consciousness. The Buddha takes all 8 consciousnesses: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and the mind. The mind, which is the same voice, classifier, the categorizer, the file maker, right? The database mind takes the input from eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and sends it over number 7, which is called the transmitting consciousness, to the 8th consciousness, the storehouse. The storehouse puts it into that storehouse wisdom, which is like the input from a field. They describe it as a field that holds seeds. And every word that we say, every deed that we do, every thought that we think goes across that consciousness as a seed. And those seeds are karmically active. So they bear fruit. Right? Every action creates a reaction, like seeds in a field. They grow and they sprout and they bear fruit. So that's the way the Buddha describes it. 8 consciousnesses just ran through. The Buddha says, with cultivation, those 8 transform into 4 kinds of wisdom. And the names of the 4, what are they? The 长所作智, the 平等性智, something智, and the 大圆净智. The 3rd one I forget. The 4th one is the one I wanted to get to. The great perfect mirror like wisdom. What is the great perfect mirror like wisdom? Well, I don't know, but I can give you the textbook definition. It's consciousness that does what? Consciousness, in Chinese we'll say it funbie, and the characters funbie are perfect 2 mirrors in there. And if you think about celery on your chopping board, what does the great perfect mirror like do? Well, I don't know, but I can give you the text. Chop it up, or maybe it's consciousness. And the function of the knife is to make finer and finer discriminations, get littler chunks of celery or carrot. Think about celery in the stew. They call it. That's what consciousness does. It is conscious of input by reductionism. And if we know the smallest, we can extrapolate the biggest. That's consciousness. Okay. Wisdom comes along. Where does wisdom arise from? Wisdom arises from samadhi, consciousness, which is stillness and focus, purity. By the power, they say the fire of samadhi flips over the distinctions of consciousness into something like a mirror. And instead of being chopped up into finer chunks, it's unified. And it unifies, it makes one of all those distinctions. The fire of a mirror, it flips over the distinction of consciousness. That's the idea. So, okay, kind of technical, and instead of being choppy, the idea is the magician, skilled in illusion, makes things appear before our eyes. Buddha, with his wisdom, can what? Reflect what you need to wake up. What I need to wake up, and out of compassion, makes a body appear and teach us. The idea is the magician. I think that's what it means. It says with his wisdom. Okay, first of all, you have to have wisdom. When the wisdom is really empty of self and others, to wake up, it flips over into compassion. And it's the compassion with the wisdom makes a body allows the Buddha to make all these fun shen, yin shen, response bodies that come out and teach. How long you have to have wisdom? Totally. When the wisdom is really empty, I think that's what it is. Now, is it really that way? We'll have to wait. Somebody has to wake up. Maybe Jinpo Sure will be the first one to wake up and then come back and say, no, you got it all wrong. It's not like that. I'll tell you. Right? So Jinpo Sure, 我们等你啊，快点吧，我们老了。I think that's what it is. Now, is it really that way? We'll have to wait. Somebody has to wake up. So, what's next? More praises. Wake up. 佛住山山真法性，寂灭无相，虚空，而于第一始意中，视现种种所行识。English. Here we go. Ready? The Buddha abides in the true nature of Dharma. Still and quiet, featureless, he is like space. Yet amid that truth in the primary sense, he carries out deeds that he makes appear. English. Here we go. Ready? That's a pretty profound phrase, right? Be able to flip that out of your singing, heavy-duty verse. The Buddha abides in the deep and true nature of Dharma. Now, small d Dharma doesn't work for me. That should be either Dharma's plural or capital D Dharma singular. I would suggest it's going to be lowercase. The Buddha abides in the deep and true nature of dharmas, meaning reality, things as they are, when perceived by the dharmas, by the nature. So, what is the nature of dharma? Nature of dharma? Take your pick. How do you want to describe it? Impermanent, lowercase. Buddha, not self, in the deep and true nature, non-self. Everything looks the same to the Buddha, but he's not cynical or burned out by this knowledge. Why? Look at the next verse. He is Buddha there because why? Looks the same amid to the Buddha. Truth in the primary but he's sense. Not we could have put that cynical in quotes, or if we put that phrase truth in the primary sense out into quotes, by this you would have seen that why? It's look at the next verse. That's a technical term. What is it? It means no self. Buddha there is in Chinese. Because why? Looks that's what the Buddha learned. Truth in the primary but he's sense. Not we could have so put check that cynical here's or the prince. If we put that phrase truth in the primary sense. I'm over the wall of the palace. Letting go of look at the next everything that the world says is worth getting. It means no self. He's going the other way. There, he's turning his back in Chinese. Why? That's what the Buddha learned. Truth in the primary sense. He's not. We could have checked it out. Cynical. Here's the prince. Put that phrase truth in the primary sense. I'm over the wall of the palace. letting go of absolutely everything in the world says
It's
really dangerous out there.
no self.
There's things that
He's
eat you,
going
things that
Buddha.
sting you,
There, he's turning
things
his
that
back
both
and
eat you
trying
and
to
sting you.
fly.
That's what the
Saying
Buddha
that
learned. Things
truth
that
in the
want
primary
to rob you
sense,
and
because
love. Check it out.
cynical,
Here's leading on the prince.
put that phrase,
And coming over the where he went. Just letting go of absolutely everything. Look into the question. The world says
He's
really dangerous. What is
no
life?
self.
There's things that
He's
eat you,
going
things that
Buddha.
sting you
There,
all the
he's
time.
turning
Things
his
that
back
both
and
eat
trying
you.
He's
You and
because
love. Check it out.
cynical,
Here's leading on the prince.
put that phrase,
And coming over the where he went. Amid that, he could. All of your experience. Look into the question. Are you a grandma? Really dangerous. What is you a grandma? Things that eat you. Are you a 20-year-old? Things that both like, you know, an employee of the corporation. You don't need me to, like, preach about that. Truth in the primary sense is what the Buddha discovered after 6 years in the woods. And lo and behold, my God, there's nobody there. And yet, what do? We get so upset about people looking at us sideways, right? You don't need me to, like, that somebody was gossiping about you. Truth in the primary sense is what the Buddha discovered after 6 years in the woods. Your heart burns like fire. Lo and behold, my God, there's nobody there. What do they say? And yet, what do? We get so upset. Oh, do I have to be mean to them now? Looking at us? Can I still be friends? Sideways. Right? You don't need me to, like, that's just something gossiping about you. Ephemeral as hearing from somebody that somebody was gossiping. You can't sleep. You heard it third hand. You didn't hear the gossip. You heard it from someone else. What do they say? And yet, that somebody was talking about you. We get so upset. Oh, do I have to be mean to them now? Looking at us? Can I still be friends? It's hard to bear. Right? You don't need me to. We will. That's just something gossiping about you. Even though as hearing from somebody that somebody was gossiping. Number one, you heard it third hand. You didn't hear the gossip. You heard it from someone else. And yet, that somebody was talking about you. So upset. Value. Do I have to be mean to them now? Two, that person who's talking about you really know you. You don't need me to. We will reason about things. Even though as hearing from somebody that somebody was gossiping. Number one, you heard it third hand. You don't know that. You didn't hear the gossip. You heard it just talking about it. And yet, that somebody was. The Buddha says, why get upset over all that? Just look at it directly as it is. Even if somebody's carrying tales about you, it doesn't affect you in the least. There's no blowback from somebody gossiping about you. If you can serenely move through it, you have real samadhi. You're closer to the Buddha's wisdom than far away from it. Because, boy, that's hard to do, right? This is exactly where Master Hua would tell us to use our effort, is in the daily stuff about, wow, the Chinese call it shi shi fei fei, right? Rights and wrongs. He talked about this a lot, in fact, because Master Hua was a controversial monk. He dared tell people the truth to their face. He took cultivation as something important and significant, not second or third in importance. Okay? And as a result, people would slander him a lot, talk about him and criticize him, and he would tell us, he'd say, you who want to be my disciples, he would say, when you hear people talk badly about me, do not defend me. If you defend me when you hear people gossiping or slandering, you are not a true disciple. What I want you to do when people talk badly about me is bow to them and thank them. Because if they didn't want me to be better, why would they bother spending time talking about me? It's because they want me to improve. You know, you should thank them, bow to them. He meant it. This wasn't rhetoric, you know. And we would go, yeah, but Shifu, you know what he said? I don't care what they said. The more they slandered, the more concerned they are about me. So, boy, that's hard to do. That's the kind of thing that Shifu paid a lot of attention to, because, why? It's everyday real life. Especially because Buddhist communities tend to be intensely social. A lot of people have the idea that when you become a monastic, you somehow like vanish into a cell, and that's the last we hear about you, under a tree seeking nirvana, right? Not the case. When you enter a monastery, you are in a small space with the same men or women hour after hour, day after day, week after year after year. And you have to learn to get along with people. And all of the friction that happens when people rub their shoulders, rub elbows together, all that stuff pops up. So monasteries are great places for training your interpersonal skills, right? So here we are, back in our verse. The Buddha abides in the deep, true nature of Dharma, where things are impermanent, not self, empty. And some people would say cool, dukkha. Still and quiescent in samadhi, featureless he is. He has lost all the things, he let go all the things that make him different and special. He wants to be just like everyone. That's what's called tong ti, same body. Amid that truth in the primary sense, no self, what does he do? He carries out deeds that he makes appear at will. Once it's really empty, it's really compassionate. This is what gets a Buddhist out of bed in the morning. It's the idea that you can do things generated by your compassion where you see a need to help people out. Who says Buddhas are selfish, world-denying, misanthropes, right? Misanthropic. Who says? They haven't read a Buddhist sutra, right? This is not a end the world attitude. This is enter the world to teach attitude. Okay, how about that? Take a look here, all of you who are hearing my voice and going, here we go, take a look. Before I came into the Dharma hall, I stopped outside the door, that would be 40 minutes ago, and took a picture of what was outside the door. Look at this lotus. I've got lotuses from the front. Just spectacular. What a color. What an amazing, what color is that? Is that lotus salmon color, or is that, it's not really fuchsia, it's kind of fuchsia, right? Just spectacular. These are real, not lilies, but lotuses. Nembulum splendens, correct, that's the one, Ben. Here it is, Nembulum splendens, right? Wow. Aren't these special? Okay, I just heard microphone noises, Jerry. Now, look at this. You're... Okay, you're back. I can hear you now. Good, good. So take a look here. This is an interesting photograph of what? The other part of the lotus. The stem and the mud that it's in. It rests in this water that you don't want to drink, right? No mud, no lotus. Without the water, you don't get the blossom. But nobody looks at this part of the flower because it's, it's not particularly photogenic or scenic, but it's essential. How interesting that our eyes are drawn to the beauty, right? We're drawn to the color and the exotic shape and that weird heart of the lotus. Is that the pistil or the pistil, the stamens or something? Anyway, these were taken by my phone front from where I'm sitting. Jin Fusher, our nun in charge, likes to grow lotuses, and we've got all these people here reciting the Buddha's name, so it's a perfect time to show Queensland's best lotuses. Alrighty, one more. Let's do another. Ready? I'll go across here. This is the one that goes so zuo li yi. Here we go. Ready? So zuo li yi zhong sheng shi jie yi fa xing er de you. 上欲无相，无差别，入欲究竟，皆无相. Okay, sing along with the Devis. Here we go. All the deeds he does to help sentient beings exist based on the Dharma nature. He no longer distinguishes between deeds with attributes and those without. Once you enter the ultimate, all are free of hallmarks. All right. No way. I cannot interpret that verse. Sorry. That's beyond me. That's, I have not entered the ultimate. And how does the Buddha distinguish? He no longer distinguishes. Do I distinguish between deeds with attributes and those without? Here's the Chinese. The key word is what? Xiang. What is xiang? Attribute. It's what my senses see. We just ran through the consciousnesses. It's what consciousness is in there going chop, 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 chop. Oh, I heard that sound. That sound was a high-pitched sound speaking Chinese. Oh, I heard that. That was a dog barking. I heard that sound. That was the sound of a currawong hoping that I'll come out in the morning and add some bird seed or some crackers to the feeding tray. He's going. He's a big grown-up bird, but that's the sound that bird made when he was a fledgling. I saw that bird. I knew him from the egg. And when he was a baby and mom was feeding him, he was so obnoxious because it would be more. And when they're fledglings, they do this thing. They shake their feathers like this. I'm so helpless, you have to feed me now, more. You know, they do that. And you watch the parents, and for about a month it's cute. And you can see the parents after a month, they're just like, she's doing it again, we got to feed him, you know. And truly, these adolescent birds they give up their fledgling manners slowly. They milk it as long as they can, as long as the parents will still respond. And so here's this full-grown currawong this morning. Big, large, black bird with this protuberant beak. And I've taken the role of the feeder, and so he's outside going, trying to get my sympathy. Please come out and feed me. And I know you. You're the daddy now. You're not supposed to revert to your childish ways. So, but they're kind of cute that way. And I did. I took a cracker and broke it up, and we have some really nice crackers without salt on them. Unsalted crackers they have seeds in them, and they're really nice crackers, and the birds appreciate them. And I play catch with my currawongs. I break it up and toss it, and he goes. He could probably try out for a farm team at the San Francisco Giants. He's got really good beak skills, picking crackers out of the air. Fly balls. So the point is that what the sutra's talking about is deeds that have things the senses perceive. Your eyes see them, your ears hear them, you can, think about them with your mind. And it says, Xiang yu wu shang wu zhi. The Buddha doesn't distinguish now between attribute deeds and non-attribute deeds. Things with signs and marks and things without signs and marks. What does that mean? He no longer distinguishes between them. The Buddha is helping living beings at a level that the sutra calls the ultimate level. That's pretty amazing. They exist, all the deeds he does to help exist based on the Dharma nature. Now, let's see here. I'm going to embarrass somebody. Jinchuan Shi, give me an example of deeds based on the Dharma nature, please.
On deeds based on the Dharma nature?
Yeah. All the deeds he does to help sentient beings exist based on the Dharma nature. I'm going to punt the football. I don't have no clue what that means. And so the Buddha now, as he helps us, the Bodhisattva, no, this is praising the Buddha. He doesn't distinguish between deeds with xiang and those without xiang. Because why? Once you enter the ultimate, there are no xiang. Okay, you take it, Jinchuan. You're on.
Well, I don't know. No marks or without marks, but there's an echo here. Is there an echo over there for you?
No, just right. Good.
where the Shravakas begin to cultivate, and they're actually sweeping away greed, hatred, and delusion, and they're really putting effort forward. And then at one point, the Buddha reveals that they have the potential to become a Buddha. And there's a story of the prodigal son who realizes that he was the son of the wealthy elder all along, and that he had the Buddha's inheritance. And maybe to make the story short, to me what that means is that when they do deeds based on the Dharma nature, it's kind of the Buddha nature, that they do deeds just from their compassionate action without any attachments to help living beings out of their basic responsibility to save and protect and care for. So anyways, that's one reflection.
There you go. Well done. All right. There will be a quiz after. You can all paraphrase Qin Chuanshi's response in a few words, and then that works. One of the challenges of this verse is Ru Yu Zhou Jing. Once you enter the ultimate. Now, enter, it could also be master. Ru Yu Zhou Jing. But what is the ultimate state, I'm assuming? In other words, your Buddha nature is no longer covered over at all. Then everything is free of hallmarks. Yeah. And that's probably closer to Dana Paramita, giving, the perfection of giving, something like that. Okay, good. Thank you for that. We're going to move right ahead here, and because we're wrapping up the end of the praises. The Devis are soon finished with their praises. Let's see what they say at the end. Here's the Chinese. Ready? 若有欲得如来智，应离一切妄分别，有无通达皆平等，即作人天大导师。 Here we go. Wishing to get the Tathagata's wisdom, you must leave behind all false discriminations. When existence and non-existence become one equality, you soon become a guiding master for humans and gods. All right, that's a little closer to conceivable prose. So if you want to become a Buddha, leave behind false discriminations. There's the words right there. 分别 in the Chinese that I was mentioning. There are two knives. 分 has a dao in it, and 别 has a dao in it. Knives is a spear, actually, in the bia. That's what cuts up, instead of reintegrating back into something that resembles a mirror that can reflect without moving and without discriminating. Two different uses of the same substance, the same faculty. One is discriminating consciousness, the other is reflective wisdom. All right? Then it says, when yo and wu, existence and non-existence, no longer trip you up, no longer trouble you, you become tian da, ren tian da dao shi, a great, a magnificent guiding teacher for humans and for devas. So, all we have to do is leave behind false discriminations. Okay? Suppose somebody gets your Starbucks order wrong, and they hand you decaf, and you were hoping for caffeine. Can you drink it just as happily? Or is it like, oh man, well, I guess maybe I better get another one because that's not going to work for me. We discriminate like crazy, right? To be able to say free of discriminations, it's so hard. Easy to say, very hard to do. Okay, moving forward. Here we go. I'm switching now to the second, Sam and Cliff. Number 2, this is page 8 of our... okay. Yes, Jerry. Yeah, Qin Chuan.
Okay, so after some reflection on that one line,
okay,
I can maybe just say something. I looked at the Chinese, it says 相与无相无区别, So I don't see deeds there in the Chinese. And so when I look at that, the first thing that comes to mind is actually xiang, like everything in the conditioned realm, samsara. Wu xiang is what's free of projections, free of mark, free of attributes, nirvana. Wu cibie, that the Buddha doesn't see any difference between samsara and nirvana. That's a quality of the Buddha's nirvana, is it doesn't abide in samsara or nirvana. And from there, he's in the ultimate, free of hallmarks, or free of marks. So that's maybe one reflection, that the Buddha is able to be in samsara and nirvana at the same time, helping human beings.
All right.
Now, what does that mean in experience? No idea.
So, we've been bouncing around with 4 different translations of that word, xiang. The early... Can you all hear are you hearing the thunder here? Can you all hear the weather?
Yeah, yes, we hear it.
Yeah, it's raining suddenly. The thunderstorms have hit us. So, for years we translated xiang as marks. And the first thing that came to mind was Karl Marx, M-A-R-X, and that's just a false cognate. Then the next thing was dogs at dog shows are praised for their complete marks or lack of, distinct marks. And it just, I thought there has to be a better rendering in English of the word xiang, closer to the 2 meanings that come from Sanskrit. One is lakshana, and the other is nimitta. Nimitta is closer to a sign, like, give me a sign, O Lord, that we're on the right track, right? Give me a sign, Guan Yin. Lakshana is closer to symbol in the sense of something that, I beg your pardon, let me step that one back. Nimitta is closer to symbol. Lakshana has the idea of a distinguishing characteristic. The eyes can tell which is right because it's blue, right? And the color blue is the distinguishing sign, mark, hallmark, feature, characteristic of what we're trying to identify, right? So that's why we're bouncing around. It's like, well, make up your mind. Is it a mark, a hallmark, an attribute, or a characteristic? And the answer is yes, to all of those. We haven't really put our foot down on how we're actually going to translate xiang. So our understanding of this very, very important word in the Deva's praise, how it really works. Do you want to, Jinchuan, you want to add something about the Sanskrit of that?
And not so much the Sanskrit, but one idea that I found very helpful for that is the word projections. Bill Porter in the Lankavatara Sutra translates Wushang as projections. So it's the mind that is free of projections. We don't put attributes out there into the world. Similar to in the Heart Sutra, talks about Dharma that's free of characteristics or marks or projections. All the things that we attribute onto the actual experience, rather than prajna, which is direct wisdom, seeing directly.
Okay. Yeah. There we go.
There's a question.
Dharma Master, I have a question.
Yes, please.
Okay. 正道歌, I speak in Chinese. Regarding this sentence, 正道歌, there's one sentence says, 法身觉了无一物。
本愿自性天真佛。
No, not that one. It's just.
法常照了无一物，本愿自性天真佛。
I'm too nervous.
Go ahead, Paul. That's all right. It's one of my favorites. So, 正是相无人法。
Okay, I will get back to you.
get back to you. Okay, yeah, but please do. Okay, look it up and yeah. In fact, Paul is referring to Master Yung Jia's Song of Awakening, and he's right there, using the idea of the senses and sense objects and discriminating among them, because why? The Avatamsaka Sutra is often cited by Chan masters because it points right to the nature. So yeah, 可以啊，你随便，你想起来你就说了。Let's do something. We've now finished with the Deva's praises, the Devi's praises. Let's sing them. On page 7, English. Now, this is English. I'm going to blow mine up a little bigger. We've got, let's start with today's, just as a magician. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's do all 4 verses from page 7. Not all 5. We've already done the top one. Okay, that's kind of our melody. Here we go. Just as a magician who is skilled in illusion can make things appear before your eyes, the Tathagata with his wisdom in a similar way can reduplicate his bodies everywhere throughout the world. Here we go. The Buddha abides in the deep and true nature of Dharma. Still and quiescent, featureless he is like space. Yet amid that truth in the primary sense, he carries out deeds that he makes appear at will. Number 3, here we go. All the deeds he does to help sentient beings exist based on the Dharma nature. He no longer distinguishes between deeds with attributes and those without. Once you enter the ultimate, all are free of hallmarks. Ponder on that one, right? Wishing to get the Tathagata's wisdom, you must leave behind all false discriminations. When existence and non-existence become one equality, you soon become a guiding master for humans and gods. It's an untuned banjo. What are you? Okay, well done. Yeah, that's a whole different approach. I think it's good because it activates another part of the brain.
Yeah, Dharma Master, I remember what I want to ask. We were
Please.
talking about this sentence. I'm thinking about that sentence is 法身绝了，法身就是幻身。
Uh-huh. Okay. Lost it. Yeah, it's slippery, I know.
法 法身觉幻化空身即法身，法身觉了无一物。Is this talking about same thing?
I think so. It's why? Because Master. So let's see. Let me translate it first so people know what we're talking about. So you say, Paul, this comes from the very first stanza. 君不见觉笑无畏闲了人不求往上不求真不奢往上不求真法身教了无一物本愿自性天真佛 So now I've lost it. I was going to translate.
幻化空身即
Okay, the illusory empty body is just the Dharma body. That very same illusory empty body is the Dharma body. When you wake up to that Dharma body, there's nothing there at all. That's the verse. Okay, that's what you quoted. And if your question is he talking about the same thing? I can confidently say in this case, yeah, he is. Because why? Master Yongjia, Xuanjue Fashi, was awakened to his Buddha nature the way the Buddha was in the Avatamsaka. It's the same nature, it's not two natures. So yeah, it's like wake up to it and what do you have? Nothing. It's just like space, they say. The Dharma body is the hardest one of the three bodies to describe because language doesn't contain it. And Buddhists are not the only ones with the same problem, right? When you get into Christian theology, they try to talk about God. And they say things like the all in all, right? Or the kingdom of God, meaning nothing outside it. Now, to my mind, I think they're coming from the same place. Human mind, human nature, trying to describe this experience inside of unity. And language struggles. But yeah, so your question, I think so. I think it's talking about the same thing. Does that satisfy you, Paul? 你觉得呢?
Yes, thank you very much. I'm perfect.
Okay. All right, good. Yeah. Song of Enlightenment's great material to work with. I want to move on because we've been working with this for a long time. We need to make some progress into our chapter. This is the conclusion of the praises. We're back to the narrator who's watching the Devis. They've thrown flowers around, they sung their songs. A few of them broke strings on their harps and they patched them quickly, and then they sat back down. He says, 无量无边天女众，种种原因称赞仪，身心寂静共安乐，瞻仰如来默然入. When the limitless throngs of celestial maidens had completed their praises using all manner of sounds, their bodies and minds felt quiet, they were happy. They gazed in silence upon the thus come one. Okay, yeah, they're happy because they're in front of the Buddha and they were able to do what they do best, which is sing their hearts out. Devas are great at making offerings, and music is one of them. Okay, pretty clear what that's about. This is very narrative, right? You can visualize if it was a movie, they put their harps down, their guitars, whatever, they're singing with their flutes, drums, and they stand there, they're happy, and they're just like, here's the Buddha. We just were able to make our praise, right? How good. Okay, 2 more verses, and it's the actual request. This is the Dharma request. Next one, ready? Here we go. 即是菩萨解脱乐，知住众会先寂静，上金刚上而请言，大无畏者真佛子. We're going to continue. 从第9地入10地，所有功德诸横相，其以神通变化事，愿从会者为宣说. Okay? At that time, the Bodhisattva Muna Liberation, perceiving that the multitudes were now still and quiet, addressed Vajra Treasury Bodhisattva with these words: "O true disciple of the Buddha, great fearless one that you are, please proclaim for us all the aspects of practice, from the 9th stage to the 10th stage, with all the meritorious virtues, and explain the particulars of the transformations through psychic powers. We want to learn all this from you, the wise one." Pretty transparent what that's about. Not a lot of doubt regarding what's going on. This is the one half of the interlocutor team. Moon of Liberation, Jie is the one who goes out to ask Jingangzang, Vajra Treasury Bodhisattva, to please explain this chapter. And as we've often described, he refuses at the first and then finally gets convinced to do it by the Buddha. So Moon Liberation, every single time we move on to the next stage, from 1 to 10, he's the one who makes the Dharma request. Just the way we did tonight. Right there, John and Agong came out with incense and walked around, and then went to the back of the hall and bowed and knelt down and requested. Same thing. Master Hua wanted us to bring the sutras home, to make them come alive, because the process is the same. And let's not make it mysterious. What is the process? It's a human saying, "I want to understand. Tell me what's going on in my life and the world around me," and asking the Buddha, right? Which is a good choice. And then the Buddha describes what's going on in all these different ways. And in this case, the topic of the day is the Bodhisattva path. The Avatamsaka is the best at talking about that. And another text that I lecture on during the week is the Diamond Sutra, the Vajra Sutra. And this is a prajna text, a wisdom text. And its main theme is emptiness and the Bodhisattva path, interestingly. So there's many passages in there are 32 chapters in the Diamond Sutra, where the Buddha is praising the Diamond Sutra. And he says how much incredible goodness results when people recite it, memorize it, read it, copy it out, and explain it for others. He talks about that as being so good. Limitless, boundless merit and goodness comes from somebody who does that. And then there are passages where he says, and if you don't do that, like if you slander it instead or criticize it, it's not a good thing to do. So the Buddha is beating the drum for the Vajra Sutra right in the text itself. And I was thinking, why is that? And I have to explain this to the participants in our session. And thinking about it, then in the Buddha's time, let's take the text as a historical document, that the Buddha did say those things at that time. And back then, 2,500 years ago, just like now, India is a religiously vital place. Man, it is jumping with all the different ways of belief and practices. It's a pluralistic society to the maximum. There are, every tree has a different guru preaching his Tao. And India is that way today, as is China. China is a very religiously vital place. America is very much that way. Not that we have gurus under every tree. That's only in Berkeley. But, there's lots of ways. The Graduate Theological Union, my alma mater, has 9 seminaries and 11 program units with different ways of being authentically faithful to a tradition, to a teaching, to a story. All right. What about the Avatamsaka? What about our text? Something popped up on my feed that I was reading. I guess it was a blog. And it said, catch Professor Thurman explaining the Avatamsaka Sutra. I thought, wow, sure, I will. This is Professor Robert Thurman, emeritus and beloved at Columbia University, and a professor of Tibetan studies, and holds the Tsongkhapa, Jade Tsongkhapa chair, and founder of the Tibet House. And all. He's certainly has earned his position as one of the foremost Buddhist scholars in English language, as well as he's a scholar, but also a practitioner. He was, interestingly enough, one of the Dalai Lama's first left home people, and first Westerner, one of them. And anybody who's listened to Bob Thurman lecture on texts knows what fun it is. He's an idiosyncratic lecturer, lots of humor, and he comes from a postmodern sensibility, and he is not reverent in that way. He's fun to listen to because he doesn't take it all that seriously, and yet he has an insider's view of having been a monastic at some point. So when I heard that Professor Thurman is going to explain the Avatamsaka Sutra, which we've done, every week for years after year after year after year, I thought, boy, I really want to listen. So sure enough, it's a 2-hour talk that he gives, and he has a series of going through texts. And of course, his specialty, his dissertation, as when he was a student, was the Vimalakirti Nirdesha Sutra. So he knows all about Vimalakirti. And so, listening into the Avatamsaka, he talked about how it's different from the other texts, and he makes a lot of reference to the Chinese version, because it's only in the Chinese version do we have a complete set of 3 editions of the Avatamsaka. And so he said Huayan regularly, using the Chinese words, and quoted some of the 5 various Avatamsaka patriarchs. And so I was really enjoying listening to Professor Thurman. But then, to my dismay, he opened up Thomas Cleary's translation, page 1, and started to read. And what's wrong with that? Well, nothing. That's a wonderful thing to do, meritorious and all. But page 1 does not represent the heart of the Avatamsaka Sutra. And in fact, the opening chapter, Shijie Zhongjopin, Shiju Miao Yinpin, the wonderful adornments of the world rulers, is magical to the extreme. And one of the only things you can say about it is inconceivable, because it shows one aspect of the Avatamsaka Sutra, which is this worlds interpenetrating without obstruction. And it's something that it's marvelous, it's magnificent, and as Professor Thurman said, you swim in the Avatamsaka. You have a feeling that all your senses are performing synesthesia, so your ears are tasting and your eyes are hearing, and they interpenetrate. And it talks about the Buddha and the ground turning to Vajra, and the Bodhi tree has wonderful gemstones raining down constantly. And okay, authentic Avatamsaka, but not the whole story. And Professor Thurman is so influential as an opinion leader in Western interpretations of Buddhism. I wanted him to go on and get to the Bodhisattva path. And if I have a chance to talk with him, I would someday, I hope to if he's willing to give me some time, talk about my dissertation on the Avatamsaka, which is called a practice-based interpretation of the Avatamsaka, which comes from what Master Chungwan, the 4th of the patriarchs, says, that if you want to have the key to understanding the Avatamsaka Sutra, there is one. It's Samantabhadra's practices and vows. Pushen Pusa Shirdayanwa. Those are the keys. And chapter 40, the last chapter, Samantabhadra's practices and vows chapter, is the hinge pin with which the entire sutra turns, upon which the entire sutra turns. So what about that? Well, those 10 practices and vows are things like what? Like bowing, like praising, we just did, we sang praises, like offering, repenting, rejoicing, requesting, following, according, and then transferring. The 10 practices and vows are all verbs. You do things. You do these practices. You xing, you step. Xing is a picture of a left step, right step. You travel, you walk down the road of the Avatamsaka. That's what's called Huayan Pusa, Avatamsaka Bodhisattva says. Well, I picked up on that in my research, and I said, if you see it that way, and you don't start on page 1, you don't start until chapter 9 to actually get the flavor of the Avatamsaka. Because why? The first 8 chapters are descriptions of worlds, lists of world systems, lists of samadhis, the names of 100 bodhisattvas in a list, and you read it and you go, tell me when we're done, because this is really boring and dry. And who says so? Well, we have a contemporary Avatamsaka master, Master Hong Yi Dashi from Hangzhou, famous Li Shutong, who left home and came, kind of set the Shanghai and Hangzhou Buddhist worlds on their ear when this famous artist became a monk. He says, don't start on page 1 if you want to take my advice. He said, start with chapter 40, following Master Chongguan. He said, that's the place to start if you want to get the flavor. And then he said, if you like that, go to the pure conduct, and go to the Brahma conduct, go to the 10 practices, go to the 10 stages. And he said, that's how you get there. And then if you get hooked by it, go to chapter 1 and start at the, So listening to Professor Thurman, the sutra becomes a curiosity, and marvelous and wonderful and profound and inconceivable and magical and something like water you swim in and into the Dharma realm, But what happens after that is you put it back on the shelf. And that's the Avatamsaka. And then you go on to something like Vimalakirti, where bodhisattvas are having a debate. And that's much more interesting because there's beings there. Well, yes, the Avatamsaka is full of people doing things. Bodhisattvas saying, wow, living beings are totally upside down. How am I going to save them? I must find a way, right? It's full of things like devas praising the Buddha. What's esoteric about that? Well, the things they're praising are esoteric, but it's praise. It's right in the heart. Don't miss the reality that those devis in that heaven are singing their heart out to the Buddha, because there he is. They are singing to him, about him. And how thrilling would that be? And then they sit down and they're just awestruck as they stare at the Buddha, mute. So that's what I want people to pick up on. And the Avatamsaka Sutra gets a bad rap. Not a bad rap. It gets misrepresented as philosophy and esoterica. That's all, And pick up the 10 practices chapter. 10 practices chapter talks about what? Paramitas. And it has a bodhisattva who wants to be good. I'm going to be a donor. I'm going to give, he says. I'm going to practice giving. As soon as he has that thought, what happens? All these ravenous, starving, homeless beggars show up and say, we're about to die. Give us your body to eat, please, so we can live on, right? Like turning his vow to practice giving right back on him. And he goes, wow, right? Is he up to it? Is the bodhisattva up to it? He says, oh man, what a great opportunity. These living beings are my good and wise advisors. They have come to help me enter the Buddha Dharma. Of course I'll give you my body to eat. How much do you want? The only thing is that you have to eat your fill. And then he says, I make a vow, in life after life, wherever I am reborn, I will have a huge body, perfectly suited for feeding hungry living beings. And only after the last living being has eaten his fill will I renounce my life. But, and there's that but, right? He says, everyone who eats a single bite of my flesh must make the great Bodhi resolve and go on to cultivate the Bodhisattva path to total, complete enlightenment. That's my criteria, that's my deal, my condition. Okay, eat away. And you go, wait. Is this sutra advocating cannibalism? What? You know, it's like, in a manner of speaking, yeah, but no, it's to say the thing that is hardest to put down, our attachment to our bodies, the Bodhisattva is willing to do in order to enter the Dharma and accomplish his vows, to be generous, you know. And if you take it at another level, you say, well, how sincere are we about being generous, about being benefactors and donors? When it really comes down to crunch, are we able to let it go or not? You know. So the 10 Practices chapter, the Shirangbin, is full of these outrageous examples of a bodhisattva who takes words to the max in order to get the Buddha Dharma. And so he winds up thanking the living beings who want to come to devour him, you know. And then it goes into a description of the self that the bodhisattva doesn't have any attachment to, the Pudgala and the Manavaka and all these subtle Sanskrit terms for the slightest attachment to a self, you know. So there's deep Dharma in it too, but it's these stories, these little vignettes that are not philosophy. And they're not esoteric. I mean, they're far out, but they're not esoterica about marvelous wonder, you know. It's a challenge. It's a mirror to look at my face. How real am I when I want to be generous, you know? So that's, you know, I hope someday I'll get a chance to talk about the Avatamsaka with Professor Thurman, and he'll come back and dig in later into the text and show people what's there. In any case, I'm grateful that he's opening it up at all, because the Avatamsaka is unknown. Tonight in the world, there may be a handful of places that are explaining the Avatamsaka Sutra ever. Mostly, as we learned from Minghai Fasher, using it through the commentaries, which is great. Can't be beat, you know. But what Master Hua is, either the heavens are agreeing with me there. Either that or I'm being zapped. I don't know. Maybe I don't dare step outside after saying. Yeah, step away from the microphone. So we learned that Master Chengguan's commentary is being explained. Master Hua wanted the Buddha's voice to be heard. What happens when you lecture from commentaries is you lose the Buddha's voice. You're studying words that came from a person who may be awake, mind you, but it's a contemporary scholar of the Dharma who may be a monk, Fa Zhang and Chengguan and all the others. And that's wonderful and priceless. But Master Hua said, I want you to touch the sutra. Make your own commentaries on it. Use however much wisdom you have based on the cultivation you do. Use all of that to explain the Dharma. Then you're doing what I want to have happen here. So, anyway, that's it for me. Anybody got a comment or a question in there? Paul was brave enough to bring up the Zhangdao Ge. What about anybody else? Got a comment or question? Up above, Agong, got any questions for me tonight? No. Billy is there. I saw him come in. Connie is there. Connie doesn't have questions. Man, if even Connie doesn't have questions, we're really scraping the bottom of the barrel for questions. Connie's always got a question. So. Jerry, any questions online? Nope. All right. Well, any questions here in the Gold Coast from Sam or Ben? Both of us, right? No. We'll let the thunder speak. Boom. There it is. Yeah. Alrighty. So we finally, yes. Oh, a hand went up. Yeah,
Sure. Hi. So this is not
Hi there.
related to like the sutra per se, but I've been wanting to ask you this question since you were here, but then you left. I never got the chance to ask it. I asked that. No.
Okay.
I was wondering, like, repenting at home and all, thinking about like my parents and like their karma and stuff. Are we allowed to like repent for them? Like, does that work with the bodhisattvas when you like ask them like, here I'm like bowing to you, but can I also repent for some of my parents' bad karma?
So we're having a big strong rainstorm on the roof here. So give me an example of what you might, a situation that you might repent of.
Like, I don't know, they haven't really killed per se, but then like, you know, just in case in the past, like if they killed, like can I repent for their killing karma, for example?
Okay, tell me if I got it right. Her question is, when she is bowing or doing, repentance practice, is it okay to repent on behalf of your parents? Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So when we transfer merit, often the thought is, I want to transfer merit on behalf of people who are sick, for example. May this sick person get well. I want to transfer merit. So that's, my action is going to help the karmic situation of somebody else, right? So that's in that case. Now, you said your parents, if you, let's say your parents have XYZ mistakes or bad behavior in the past, if they're human, they do, we pretty much all do, and you hope that work that you do in repentance, bowing or taking part in a repentance ceremony, will lighten their karma, will affect their negative side and bring it up to a positive side, something like that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so in theory it should work. How much? The Earth-Store Bodhisattva Sutra says when we transfer merit to someone, let's say somebody who's dead, the deceased gets 1/7 of the merit, says the sutra, right there in the Earth-Store Sutra. That doesn't seem like a lot, but for example, we're about to do the precepts for the deceased here in the Gold Coast this next week. And the precepts for the deceased is a ceremony that's specifically aimed at people who died in difficulty, maybe a landslide, and the village was suddenly, or I was watching the tsunami videos the other day. The tsunami is coming in and it just takes the beach, and it takes the first third of the village on the coast, All those people at once die, drown. And maybe some people don't even know, you don't even know the names of some of the people who were washed out to sea all of a sudden, right? So the precepts for the deceased are designed to do good on behalf of people who die in difficult circumstances, like that. That's a typical example. And they're called gu-wun, lonely souls, solitary souls. So if repentance and bowing on behalf of somebody like that still has goodness, how much the more goodness would be done by somebody who is very much on your mind, like your parents, right? We come from our parents. We're deeply connected to them. We know their buttons, we know their habits, we know what makes them happy. And if we can do dharma, do practices on their behalf, certainly there is goodness. Whether or not you can actually do engineering on their karmic bank balance, because you've got one, I've got one, they've got one. But I will suggest that the goodness done by that is the goodness in the invisible link you have with your parents. Invisible but really, really strong, right? We're on each other's radar, and if you do good on behalf of someone, they may not know it directly, but it is not wasted. And when they see you, they have a good feeling about you. So I would, I cannot say with my own eyes, yes, this kind of repentance practice helps your parents to this amount. I don't know that. I don't see it. But in theory, in principle, for sure, it's a good thing to do. If you can further expand it and say, I want to help out my parents and I want to help out everybody's parents, then the goodness is not diminished. It's not that, everybody gets a little less. I think as your heart expands to include everybody's parents, then it's like you're essentially putting fertilizer on all of the good roots that people have as parents. And then in the future, if you are a parent, let's say hypothetically, then that goodness that you created for parents includes you, right? So it's the best way to become a happy parent with children who appreciate you is for you to appreciate your parents. So, in other words, I'm saying, yeah, probably a good idea, but maybe not the way you thought of it originally, right?
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Hey, why don't we transfer merit right now? And thank you all for joining. We're going to be printing up the next section of the 10th stage and see what Vajra Treasury Bodhisattva has to say to us about that Bodhisattva who's just about to graduate. And I'll remind everybody, First Store Bodhisattva is a 10th stage Bodhisattva, they say, not a Buddha. He's a 10th stage Bodhisattva. He got there and said, I'm staying here, and I'm going to stay in the hells. That's my neighborhood where I'm going to practice. So if we want to get a sense of what a 10th stage Bodhisattva is really like, it's on the pages of the Earth Store Sutra, where we will find out. Okay, now we need a text, dedication of merit. It's right. Oh, the Ballad of Super Strong. That's not it. Oh, Yashodhara. That's not it. Here we go. We've been doing a lot of singing here at our Amitabha session. All right. The way it's done is you make a wish, put your heart out, and as big, make your heart measure larger yet. Ready? Here we go. May every living be, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find in giving unity, may our minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light dispel the darkness of the endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. Let's do one more. May all become compassionate and wise. All right, I'm going to ask Jin Chuan Shi or Jin Wei Shi to do the announcements for Berkeley Monastery, and then when you're done, lead everybody in bowing. Thank you all for joining. Look forward to being with you again next week from the Gold Coast. Amitofo.
Amitofo. Okay, so for us at BBM, we have our Fochi, Fosan starting tomorrow 8:30 a.m. People can all join. Don't know why we still have an echo though. 还有什么吗？金佛师？ Yeah, tomorrow there's no walking Amitabha recitation because there's going to be the Amitabha session. So you can come in and do a little bit of walking, but you also do some sitting too, and probably playing the ground bell. With Jing Fosher. Anything else, Jing Weisher, in terms of events? So this Tuesday, Abba Bai Gary monks will be coming. So if you want last chance to see them before they go on winter retreat, so this Tuesday, 7. They have tea time around 5, and then their talks at 7:30. I think Monday we met at the yoga qigong class. Monday yoga qigong class. 2 more lectures from Marty before the break. So come Friday night if you want to get Marty talking about the Avatamsaka. Okay. So I think that's sounds like it. So how about we all can stand and bow to the Buddha? Three bows.